All right, listeners, welcome to episode 3 of the Real Takes Tennis Podcast. Kind of a surprising for us, not really, but we said we'd have a Wimbledon preview or French Open preview. Completely failed on that, and then look at us, back-to-back weeks of episodes. We're getting it in.
We're going for it, guys.
We have a lot.
All for you guys.
All for you guys. All for our faithful. From when I looked this morning, 8 listeners. But hey,
Like 3 or 4 of them were me.
Yeah.
Notes. To be
And the other 2 were me re-listening to it before I go to sleep. So really, it's it's for the 2 unnamed listeners. We appreciate you guys. This has been a long time coming. There's been we shared this out with a lot of our chats, and we received a lot of hearts, but we know those are just for solidarity.
Exactly.
no one's actually.
When you look at the stats, bro, no one is listening.
So this is our attempt to get some more traction. You can see us now on Spotify, which is great. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. We're right in the midst of the grass court swing. Wimbledon coming up in a month. Stay tuned for next week's Wimbledon draw analysis, which we will for sure do.
This is a promise.
No mountain issues. No Wi-Fi issues. So we'll be locked for next week. But I guess I just wanted to start off by talking about how the grass court season's gone the past couple weeks. We're taping this right on the heels of Bublik winning his first grass court title and Carlos regaining the world number 1 ranking after beating de Minaur in
Queens.
Queens. Yes, that's what it's called. Why don't we start there?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a seesaw battle, right, between Carlos and Joker for the rest of the year. Race to London, year end number 1. We know it's going to be neck and neck through the finish line.
Yeah, and I think it really depends on it's the thing is from what I've noticed about Novak is I don't think he doesn't really care about playing the 2. He's not going to chase the world number 1 ranking. I think when I remember him talking last year after he won Wimbledon, he was like, I've already achieved like the historic world number 1
weeks. World number 1.
Yeah, so for
no
him,
one's gonna catch him on that.
Yeah, no one's gonna catch him on that, and I think he's not in a position to, or like he doesn't have the interest to like play the 250s, play the 500s anymore. He's just going to focus on the Grand Slams and the big tournaments for the rest of the year. So that's his priority. But I can definitely see Carlos trying to chase the world number 1. For him, I think it means a lot more. And so I can see him playing like 250 right after Wimbledon to try and get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think with Carlos, he's younger, so he's going to put in the volume at the smaller tournaments, like you're saying, right? And he's going to try and rack up the titles, whether they're 250s, 500s, 1000s. He's trying to get wins under his belt.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, it's pretty impressive that he was able to. I mean, we were watching some of the highlights of him playing de Minaur today, and the guys the rest of the week. He looked really good out there.
Phenomenal recovery post the French Open meltdown, cramping in the 3rd set against Joker, which we gave him a little bit of shit for, rightfully so, last week. But yeah, he's totally turned it around. I still think there are question marks because he wasn't really pushed on the grass in a best of 3 quite yet. So we'll see how his fitness holds up at Wimbledon. But I mean, the guy. He's one punch man with the power, right? I mean, this guy literally has the ability to just put you away with a single shot, backhand, forehand serve, anything you give him. He has that ability to blow anyone off the court.
It's funny you mentioned that he wasn't pushed because I will agree that he wasn't pushed, but all the opponents he played in Queens, they're sneaky good. Like Rinderknecht is a really nasty, like underrated player.
Yep.
Beat Lehechka, who we will talk about a little later in this podcast as being a really promising player. Beat Grigor. I watched a little bit of that match. That was Grigor.
No, Grigor is filthy on grass. I think that leads to another point about just like what it takes to win on grass versus clay versus other surfaces, right? Where to me, what I'm seeing is tennis IQ and talent on grass just trump physicality, heavy spin, dedication to the game. You could have a guy who's a little bit out of shape who comes on grass and just works you with just raw talent. So
yeah,
really cool to see someone like a Dimitrov stand out right now. I think Bublik falls under that category.
Yeah.
Abusing the drop shot against Zverev, which I don't understand why more people don't do that, because he stands 30 feet behind the baseline on a grass court, which is just not a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's funny because the predominant image I have in my head of that match specifically is literally Bublik hits a perfect drop shot. Zverev doesn't get to it, and he just looks to his box like completely exasperated. He's like, I have no clue what to do here.
Well, bro, why don't you shorten up your backswing and stand 5 feet behind the baseline instead of 30?
Yeah, no, I mean, and Zverev's timing is still really, really good. He can lock it. He can, if he steps forward like even a little bit, he'll be fine.
I mean, dude, even for him to get to the semifinals with his game style is like pretty impressive.
Yeah,
because he hasn't changed anything.
Yeah. I was gonna go right. Yeah, so like right after playing. No, you're good. I was gonna say like after playing Grigor, Carlos played Sebastian Korda, and then Demonor. Not like that's like a pretty high level competition. Every single person really, really good. So it's actually really impressive that he pretty much just dropped that one set to Arthur and McNetch, and then smooth sailing.
Right. I think what I was more saying is that he hasn't been pushed physically.
For sure.
Though he played really good players on a grass court. I mean, we saw the Bublik match was literally like an hour and a half to a 3-setter. So, I mean, it's a different type of fitness, right?
Yeah.
It's the Pete Sampras fitness, explosive. You're really trying to go serve +1 on most points. So I'm not saying it's not physical. It's just like very different, much less likely to cramp than a clay court match where you're just side to side and vertically moving everywhere around the court.
For sure. I think one of the things that we touched on the last podcast was how like the challenge, the switch between clay to grass, like the movement is the biggest part of that. And one of the things that I really liked from watching Carlos's interviews was he was saying that he looks at Federer and Murray as like the guys that he emulates the most on grass because their movement is so much like Djokovic. His point was basically like their movement is real superior to everyone else's, and I'm not trying to copy Novak because I don't have it in me to slide all over the court.
You're gonna rip your groin if you try to do what Djokovic does on grass. So.
Which is even more funny because I was watching the highlights of Djokovic's match last year against Jannik, and do you remember in the 5th set, Jannik goes out wide on the deuce side, and then goes right back to the backhand side, and open backhand slide down the line winner, and Jannik is just like, what more do I have to do to win this?
You know, on that front, I do wonder how much of it is tech, in the sense that like their shoes have those micro spikes on them. I do wonder how much of it is just getting used to that, because you see a lot of guys who can move well without sliding, and then you just see Djokovic. I don't actually know how he glides like that on the grass court. It's true.
I do think the reason why some of this, like Carlos and some of the players aren't going to slide on grass is like they don't, like mentally they're not willing to like risk tearing a groin or something like that.
And I do think it's cool that he cites Federer as someone to emulate on grass, obviously, because Shiver and I both noticed this, is that Grigor almost is indistinguishable from Federer.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, there are some things like court positioning and stuff that Federer might do a little better, but if you just watched him, didn't look at the face, it almost looks identical to Federer moving, same forehand, same slice.
Yeah, I was going to say...
similar serve.
Yeah, I was going to say the when I watched Grigor play Carlos, the one thing I was noticing, which, I mean, he does do a lot, is like he was slightly lot of chip on the backhand side, which is, I mean, it's the right play to do on grass. But yeah, I agree. They have a lot of similarities. And if I'm not mistaken, Grigor got to the semis.
He did,
Wimbledon, So he
has a grass court game.
He has a grass court game.
So I know that we said a few podcasts ago that coaches do not teach your students one-handed backhands. The 2 or 3 weeks on the grass is the one exception. We're having that one-handed backhand and focusing on talent and feel and the slice and the spins. That's where you will reap the rewards. But in my opinion, 4 out of 52 weeks is, especially only when you play grass on the pro tour, is not going to make a career out of tennis.
No, for sure. And we were talking about this right before we got on, where Daniil Medvedev, although we've said in prior episodes that his game is almost built for pretty much any surface, when he was playing against like Bautista Agut, pretty much anyone the rest of the week, he was just grinding. He's not like trying to adapt his game to the grass court style, which is probably why he got ousted.
Rublev and Medvedev are, I guarantee they have read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky like 700 times, because they just are obsessed with suffering. For For reasons beyond explanation, Medvedev has no desire to change his game style when he hops on a grass court and just continues to play like 20, 25 ball rallies in Halle, which is, it beats me, man. I mean, at least some of the other guys are changing their game styles.
Yeah.
Which I think leads to a separate question of why they don't have that extra gear of aggression on the hard court and on the clay court.
Yeah.
I think the examples I would cite are like De Minaur, as we've said, blue collar player, but a baller for us local grass-fed back fence grinders. I mean, he is an inspiration. It is still a mystery why he doesn't add that gear of aggression to his game on the hard court. Same with, I watched Ymer take a set off Nakashima. And Ymer is, I mean, he is the only male tennis player who's made money as a pusher, in my humble opinion. But he's ripping forehands and backhands. And I'm like, dude, why don't you do this on the hard courts?
Yeah.
Same with RBA. Yeah. I think Bautista Agut had a great result getting to the semis. Even recently in Halle. Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, these are simple tweaks that you can apply to the hard court game that will make you more money.
For sure. I think, I mean, we've talked a lot about this, but I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to just comfort. Like, these guys are just not comfortable. For some reason, they're more comfortable doing this on grass than they are on other surfaces. It's also possible that they feel like the margin for error is just like far more thin in grass. And so they feel like they have to take more chances. Because that was one of the, grass has obviously changed a lot since, 20 years ago to now. Like, from everything that's been talked about, like, you can play more baseline games. But one thing Pete Sampras said before he won on Wimbledon was that I just feel like you get a couple bad bounces and that's it. The match is over. Right. And his coach was like, "That's a terrible mentality to have."
It's pure luck, guys.
It's pure luck. Like, no, you play the fundamentals the right way, and that'll lead to success.
Yeah, and then on the note of some of these guys who have different game styles that kind of strangely translate well to grass, where they change their games to adjust to grass, I thought Fucsovic was another really interesting result the last few weeks, getting to semifinals. What's interesting about him and De Minaur is that they didn't really, or I should say him in particular, he doesn't really change his game style. He was still grinding a good amount and leveraging his athleticism. Yeah. But what was cool was that his forehand has just enough pace and lands just short enough, interestingly, to bother opponents. And so he was rendering a lot of people on that. When he would go line on his forehand, it would land so low, you'd see people reaching and just chipping up backhands, and he would just pop open the next one in the open court. So I think pretty good results. He made the Stuttgart semifinal and lost to eventual champion Tiafoe. Phenomenal result leading into Wimbledon. Definitely a dark horse. So yeah, I think bottom line is, P mentioned last week for the purists, grass court is really optimal for tennis purists. And I couldn't agree more, because you start seeing the tennis IQ prevail. Bublik being a prime example, right? Unbelievable win over another Dostoevsky in
Rublev. We don't know. We don't know if it's high IQ or if he's just crazy. But Bublik has the talent to disturb anyone on any surface. I was mentioning that I saw him last year at Wimbledon play Tiafoe, and from all accounts, it looked like Bublik should have won that match, because he has. I mean, his serve is an absolute cannon. I don't care how
he's 6'5".
Yeah, he's 6'5". He's 6'5". He's I would say he's pretty similarly built to Medvedev, but a little bit more, I think, filled out.
Absolutely.
And that's that he's an athlete right there. He could dunk a basketball. He's got that. He's got
the full sleeve.
He's got the full sleeve, so he's part of the culture too, which is what we need in tennis.
Pretty unlike what Tsitsipas has been saying. I actually can't believe he said that out loud. I thought it was just a tweet, but the fact that he said that on video about basketball approach from Nick Kyrgios being an uneducated approach to tennis was. I think I'll probably harp on that a couple more times.
No, for sure. And one of my favorite responses to that is Nick just saying, "You're soft, mate. We're not cut from the same cloth," which I think is an absolutely hilarious way to blame Tsitsipas. Yeah, guys, trust me, we don't have we don't hate on Tsitsipas. We're not going
Actually, could I hate on him? Not hate, but could I just say one more thing about Tsitsipas?
On you.
So I do have a fresh take about him. I think he needs to do mushrooms.
Okay.
So the reason why I think this is, I think he needs something, a revolutionary life experience where he looks himself in the mirror, and just realizes how arrogant and egotistical he is. I think this experience will result in a shattering of his sense of self that will destroy his tennis for arguably, potentially the rest of his life. But I think it'll be worth it for his development as a human.
Yeah, it's either that or he just needs to learn how to like keep his opinions to himself. It's like one of the two.
What were you saying about Aaron Rodgers?
Oh yeah, I was saying Aaron Rodgers. I think I read somewhere recently that he was on a psychedelics convention, and he was saying that like everyone should do ayahuasca. Ayahuasca. Because it's just a life-changing experience. I mean, AR-12 is one of my favorite QBs. I don't know.
And Tsitsipas needs to follow in his footsteps.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Aaron's got a lot more to his name because the guy's like straight goated. If those who know me know that he's better than Brady, but we can cover that on a separate segment. Awesome. I think that's kind of what we want to talk about for the
grass court.
Yeah, as we were watching this morning, special shout out to Alex DeMinor for playing the finals and booking it straight to Eastbourne to play his next match. One would argue that's not the best preparation for Wimbledon, but again, this is what blue-collar players are made from, and I guarantee you he's flying economy to Eastbourne. Oh, sorry, he's Ubering to Eastbourne.
I could see him Ubering, honestly. I mean, this reminds us of Borna Toric in the lobby of, I think, the Palm Springs airport, right? Just sitting around flying economy. Probably straight to the Phoenix Challenger?
No, this is engaging because we thought he was going to Miami. Dude, he did a little detour at Houston first. So he's not even booking direct. He's booking he's booking to a connecting flight. Yeah. Oh my God. And this is
This is what it takes, guys.
Yeah, this is what it takes, guys.
Not that we would know. As we mentioned before.
Yeah. But on to the next one. Cool, awesome. So I guess like that leads in really nicely to Wimbledon. We got Wimbledon coming up in just over a week. I think we've covered kind of ad nauseum that Novak is the resounding favorite, and barring any unforeseen like I personally don't think Carlos's result changes anything about Novak's chances. I still think Novak's the favorite. I still think he's likely going to win, but maybe there are some other up-and-coming players that we think could have big results in Wimbledon. I think that's kind of what we wanted to cover on this segment.
The dark horse.
Yeah, the dark horse.
And we made this excuse last time about not having the draw in front of us yet, but I think we can still start talking about who these people are. I'll start off with Nicholas Jarry. Obviously not going to win the tournament, but just as a potential third, fourth round, maybe quarterfinalist with a good draw.
Yeah.
He's had a great year already. You know, I think he might have won a couple of titles.
He won a title I think he won a title in his native country, in Chile.
Yeah, so he's won Chile. He beat Echeverry in the finals, and then he won another event, beating Dimitrov in the finals, which are two good results. Knowing Dimitrov, I think his game's actually kind of elevating. You know, he's one of those guys who I always thought he was a little bit too friendly, kind of like Casper, but you can tell just by the handshakes and the highlights. He's out there for blood right now. He knows this is his last chance to get a few extra dollar signs from tennis. So he's focused. He's looking different from the way he used to.
Yeah. I know we said he potential third, fourth round. What do you think has been elevating his level of game recently? Because I remember seeing him a couple of years ago, and I thought the same thing. Like, I thought he had the chance to be really, really good, but I think in the past like 1 or 2 years, he's kind of dropped off a little bit, and it's only now that he's picking it back up.
Dimitrov or Jarry?
Jarry? Yeah.
I don't know, with a game style like his, where he just bludgeons the ball. I mean, he's going to go up and down by nature, right? We've seen it. I know you're going to talk about Jan Leonard Struve too, but we see these guys kind of go through ebbs and flows over their career just because, I mean, the 1-2 game it's not as complete, let's say, as like, obviously, I mean, Djokovic is not, and you can't talk about him in the same sentence, but it has the potential to be, you know, a little bit more up and down than say like a De Minaur or someone like that who's just grinding week in, week out.
Yeah, and that honestly leads in really nicely to my fourth round prediction of Jan Leonard Struve. I think he's gonna. I mean, I've been high on him since his. I've been high on him for quite a while, but the fact that he's had such a good clay and grass court season, I think this is the his game is built for this surface. He's got a massive serve, he's got a huge forehand, and I think he's got a really solid backhand and net game too. And I think that's the type of combination where over 5 sets, yes, it's going to be tough for him to make deep runs, but 2 sets, 3 sets, like he can find ways to get it done.
Yeah. And how about 30th ranked in the race to London, Ben Shelton? Massive game, massive serve, massive forehand. Obviously, like, is this his first tournament? Basically, his first tournament on grass.
Second tournament, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be up and down, of course.
Yeah.
We're seeing a bit of in a sophomore slump post the quarterfinal at Australian Open.
Yeah.
But another guy who's just with those weapons on a grass court, just dangerous.
For sure. I mean, a pretty good result also beating JJ Wolf. That's not an easy result. JJ's probably got one of the biggest games on tour, and for him to beat him in straight sets is a really good result. I see that Ben's scheduled to play Mallorca, and so that'll be a good, hopefully, tune-up for him. A little less so than a guy like De Minaur who's been playing a lot of matches. Ben's only played 2 matches on grass, and so I think this is like a good little tune-up for him.
Yep. And then how about right behind Ben Shelton, this shocked me, is Andy Murray. I don't understand. He must be playing Challenger every like 2 days to be 31st ranked in the race to London. But he's won it before. I think he should, personally, I think he should retire. I mean, you know, I would be remiss to not mention his name at least.
For sure. I'm going to be honest. I think he makes it to the second round this year. I don't.
What I don't understand is with the metal hip, why is he not playing more aggressive? The style that won him tournaments, you know, the Olympics
for sure.
The US Open, Wimbledon. He's like reverted back to his old game style, which is the exact opposite of what he should be doing.
I think that's all he knows. That's all he truly like. At his core, he's just a grinder, and that's all he's comfortable with.
So, do you think it's possible to rewrite habits more philosophically and more generally speaking, or do you think he will always revert? Do you think that period of 4 years where he won the 2 Olympics, won the 2 US Opens, and won Wimbledon were actually an exception to the rule?
Yes, I do. I actually think at this level, when the guys are that accustomed to a certain style of tennis that's won him as much as he has,
it's
instinct. Now, to be fair, like guys like, I mean, Rafa has changed his serve like 7 or 8 different times.
Yep. He's the exception to the exception.
He's the exception to the exception. I mean, Novak too, to an extent. He's also changed his service motion a little bit, but his core game style necessarily.
Right. And the athleticism.
That hasn't changed, and that's the same with Rafa. So I think those core habits for Andy,
they're going to be tough to unwind.
They're going to be tough to unwind. I think his pure instinct, like, he's not.
I think, too, when you come back to tennis from such a long break, you're going to more likely to revert back to those initial
habits.
And have to redevelop them over time than just, like, start off where you left off.
For sure. And I also think, to an extent, tennis has changed in that it's become super aggressive. And so, I mean, we saw this at Indian Wells playing guys like Draper. All Draper knew how to do was just beat the shit out of the ball cross court and then go inside in. And Andy was happy to defend this entire time. So
and lose.
Yeah. But if you played him the next match, he would have had his chances. So I think it's a style of tennis that could potentially be rewarding against the idiots like Felix and Jack Draper and so on. I think that's why he's
still snagging those blue collar boots, as we say,
exactly,
and getting status quo results, which will continue to make him earn a living in tennis, though he doesn't need to.
Yeah. Cool. I think the only other player I wanted to talk about was Talon Klitsvur. I think, I think big win, winning the grass court tournament in Herketenbosch.
Sorry, say that again?
In the Netherlands. He's a player that I've never quite understood because he's got kind of like a big goofy take back on his forehand. His backhand, as we know, really solid. But that's a big time win, beating. I think he beat Rublev in this tournament.
Which tournament was it?
This was Hertogenbosch. No, I lied. He beat Jordan Thompson, who's
It's in the finals.
It is the finals.
Is that a challenger?
No, this is the 250.
No offense to Jordan.
Yeah.
But that dude is another blue collar Australian.
Yeah. We're watching this match because Jordan was up 7-6, and I think he was like six. He had like a couple of chances in the tiebreak to win his first ever ATP title. So much so that Nick even tweeted out like, "If you want to win a title, this is your chance right here."
That's so offensive.
I think that's extremely disrespectful. But yeah, Jordan couldn't deal with it, and the third set was just a straight wash once.
But knowing the Aussie gang, that's all rapport, right?
Yeah, it's all rapport. It's all in good fun. They're cut from the same cloth. But no, I thought that was a great win because not only did he beat Jordan, he beat Rusevori, De Minaur, Popperin, and Ymer. So I think that's a really good tournament for him. And I think that goes really well. He's probably going to be seated in Wimbledon, and I think he's got a great chance to make the third round. So probably will get his clock cleaned by Novak 3-3-3. No sweat with that forehand, but that's okay. That's he'll take the $150,000 paycheck.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah. Cool. Any other guys you got for Wimbledon? All right. Cool.
I don't want to overlap with our.
No, for sure. Our next segment is something that we're pretty excited with. We're in June right now, so first half of the season is done with, and taking a page out of the NBA's book, where they award All-Stars in the middle of the season. We thought we would do something similar and do a little first team All-ATP, or maybe start with first team All-ATP. And if we have enough guys that we wanted to talk about, we can go to second team.
And what's the caveat again?
Yeah, the caveat here is no Novak, no Carlos can be included in the All-ATP.
Of course.
Yeah.
That just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, we know LeBron, that guy could be retired and he'd still get votes for All-NBA and All-Stars, but we're going to put our foot down here.
Let's do it. So I think I mentioned Nicholas Jarry has one of the up-and-comers who's improving. He's actually 17th in the race to London as we speak. So pretty impressive year thus far. I know he's mentioned Jan Leonard Struff a few times, who's 16 in the race. Those are definitely, I would say, all ATP first team picks. I think one other guy that I wanted to call out who we haven't yet is Yannick Hanfmann.
Yes.
Right. This is a dude whose previous high ranking as of earlier this year was in the 90s, and he is now 38th in the race to London. So we watched him play all the way back in the college days at USC. All court game, great player. I think he's one to include as definitely an honorable mention just because of the results and the consistency.
For sure. We were talking a little bit before this that he seems to win at only two places, and that's Stuttgart and the other grass and Halle in Germany. Those are the only two tournaments he seems to do really, really well in. But he's got a lot of upside, and I agree on this one.
And I just love to see a guy who went the college route, continue to develop his game. He's 20, maybe 29 already, closing in on 30.
Yeah.
And he's just continuing to improve. So it's good to see that if you hang around long enough, there's still
chances. Yeah, there's still opportunity for
and
you.
It tells you how kind of small the margins are.
Oh no,
right? Where like outside the top 10, outside the top 20, it's a dog-eat-dog world there, and you just got to hang around.
No, for sure. I forget the name of the pro that was talking about this, but he was saying basically like, don't doubt these guys who are playing on the college tour, right? Like they're really, really good, and they can like win challengers and win big matches. So you definitely need to be watching out for them because the college level has become so much better. I wanted to shout out one guy on the All-ATP And his name is Tomás Martín Echeverry. He had a great result at the French Open, reaching the quarterfinals. Got his clock cleaned by Novak, if I'm not mistaken. But this is a guy who a couple years back was posting pictures of how close he was to Novak in terms of points. So like literally only a couple years ago, he had like 1 or 2 ATP points, and now he's slowly made his way to a top 30 player. Pretty good game. I would say he's got no shot at Wimbledon. Probably going to be a first round exit, but he's had a really good result in the French Open. And
before that, I think he made a final in Houston. On one of the green clay court tournaments,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Did he lose to Tiafoe or something?
Yeah, I think he lost to Tiafoe. I think 6-6 in that one. So up and coming player. He's 23 years old. Yeah. He's super young. So I think as far as the first team all ATP, we've got to give him some love because quarterfinals isn't easy. And I mean, we could fill the first team all ATP with just top 10 guys, but we gotta
shout out the
up and comers. And to be quite honest, like Taylor Fritz, he hasn't done what his ranking should like enable him to do right now. So.
Right. I think one of the only guys actually in the top 10 who's really, really stepping up to their ranking is like a Tiafoe or a Kachanov who are just posting those solid week in, week out results.
I actually would go as far as to say first team all ATP, like number 1 right now, Holger. I think Holger's falling right
undeniably.
now. Yeah.
Even though, as we've mentioned, our strong opinions about him, I still see his mother in the camp, so he didn't listen to the pre-camp episode.
She didn't listen to the. We couldn't count her amongst the 2 Real Takes tennis listeners. Yeah, I mean, he was doing. I saw Musetti hit him accidentally on the overhead, and Rune had something to say about that. I was like, dude, he gave you like a nice little apology. Yeah. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, and again, pretty hypocritical considering we know Rune has his own gamesmanship tactics as well.
Yeah, well, I think what was covered on Twitter was he took a medical timeout right before for his wrist, and the journalists are just like, yeah, your wrist wasn't hurt. It didn't appear like it was hurting before or after the timeout. So what happened and how'd you win that? He was just like, yeah, you're not in my body, so you can't ask me a question like that.
Extra props for Demonor for shutting him up though.
Yeah,
in the semis.
No, absolutely. He's I mean, we're only like an hour and a half away, like right after the final, but he's probably already on his Uber to eSport and stuff.
This is funny how this first team mention just turned into another just hate fest.
Yeah, but if he doesn't hear from us, the only other way that he's going to be able to figure it out himself is join Sisyphus in this mushroom quest. So he's going to have to hear it one way or another. I think that's 3-4 guys that
sure.
Yeah, man.
I think we might want to go the flip side now of who the worst decliners are. And top of the list for me is Matteo Berrettini. Post Netflix special last year, post breakup. I don't know what's going on with him, but we knew something was awry.
Yes,
when he signed up for the Phoenix Challenger.
Oh yeah,
after not a terrible result, even in. Okay, it was a terrible result.
No, he lost
in Wells. He lost to Taro Daniel.
Yeah, my man.
Plays the Phoenix Challenger. Doesn't even win it, guys. Doesn't even win it. Loses to Alexander Shevchenko, 132nd rank, 4-6, 6-3, 3-6. And things have just looked a bit off since, right? Lose to Mackenzie McDonald, 6-6 in Miami right after that. And then loses to Holger in Monte Carlo by withdrawal. So something is off.
Yeah.
But does play Stuttgart Grass 4 tournament and gets waxed.
Yeah.
By Mr. Sonego.
Yeah.
1-2.
Yeah.
So,
and Mateo's no chump. Mateo has won Queens, I believe, back to back.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, he's gotten to the finals at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And this guy has a hammer of a serve and forehand.
Yeah.
But I've always just not been able to get around him because of his backhand. I mean, just never seen a liability like that. Like, bro, just hit like 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
And figure it out.
Yeah. Either that or you got to switch to a Babolat, man. Like, I know you're playing with the head racket, but that's probably one of the reasons.
Babolat, another shout out.
Yeah.
We need a couple more arrows.
We need a couple more Aeropros, if you want to partner with us, reach out to us. Okay, Matteo Berrettini, first team, what, all shit list? Yeah, I like absolutely. That. I'm gonna go ahead and say Denis Shapovalov.
Ooh, the rapper.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what he's doing right now. I genuinely don't know what he's doing, and because this is a guy who's reached the semifinals of Wimbledon, and I don't think I've seen him have like one good result this year. He's 9-11 on the year, so clearly struggling. And
yeah, here's my take on Shap. I think he needs to. You remember that drill where you go to the back fence?
Yes.
You go to the post.
Yeah.
And you toss the ball along the post.
Yes.
I think he needs to do that 500 times a day for the next 2 to 3 months and fix his toss and fix his serve. The guy literally doesn't have a second serve.
Yeah. He I have noticed also from his service motion, there's just a lot going on there. It's not straightforward and simple. Yeah, he's like falling over all. And I mean, he's a super explosive athlete, but it's not just like falling right. He's not like throwing it and tossing it and falling right into the court.
Right.
He's all over the place.
Yeah, it's just too bad because with a lot of these guys, I think my experience of them has been marred by the few times I've watched them play live. Right.
Yeah,
so we watched Shap play Indian Wells last year. And I mean, I think he ended up winning that match 3-4 against, I'm forgetting who, but it was just so tough to watch. It was one of the ugliest matches, like men's tennis matches that I've watched.
Yeah. No, I mean, if we take a look at his past results, lost to Fusovic in Stuttgart, lost to Carlos in Paris, lost to Zhizhen Zhang in Madrid. I think Zhizhen Zhang, yeah, that guy's a stud. He's going to be top 30 by the end of the year, guaranteed. Lost to Tsitsipas, lost to Taylor, lost to Ugo Humbert. Oh, no. Oh, say it ain't so. Guess who he lost to in Delray Beach?
I don't even want to know.
Michael Moe.
Oh, no. That is a brutal.
That's a tough one right there.
I don't even think Michael Moe is blue collar.
Yeah, no, I think he might be like green collar. Like
this dude is he's got a construction worker forehand.
Yeah. I mean, well, not to like, preview our, I mean, do we have anyone else we want to put on the shit list, or do we want to?
No, I think those are two really good call-outs.
Two call-outs? Okay. We did have some other things we want to talk about, but honestly, this is like a really good segue into a hypothetical that we were talking about a little while. You want to set it up?
Yeah, for sure. So we were trying to come up with new segments, and one of them is kind of like a hypothetical or would you rather segment. And so I posed the question to P, would you rather have Nick Kyrgios's passion for tennis or Michael Moe's forehand? And it's a really tough question.
Yeah, so I'll take Kyrgios's passion on this one because, guys, I just type Mo forehand and you can see what we're talking about. It might be because he plays with the Dunlop racket. We're not quite sure what's going on with the forehand. But I would say, given that Nick can dial it in for the big matches and has passion for those high upside matches, I would rather take that than
just having a cap in your game.
Yeah, and to be fair, it is a tough question because I think at the end of the day, all Mo needs to do is reps, thousands and thousands and thousands of reps. But because passion is something I think you can work on outside of the court and still like be comfortable enough to compete in matches. If you're not feeling good with your forehand, it's going to be tough for you to work on it and go in and feel good.
And, I think taking your side, though, I will argue for the other.
Yeah.
I think it's just not fun when you have a forehand like Michael Moe's. I'm speaking from experience, having a really shitty forehand myself. When you're overspinning it and it's landing on the service line and you cannot wrap your head around why you can't hit the ball past the service line. Yeah. And you're having to scramble around the court as a result of that. I mean, it's not fun. I actually blame my forehand for like all my injuries.
Really?
Absolutely.
No way.
It was such a liability that I had to develop like the rest of like my athletic game and just rely purely on basically being a cross country runner, not a tennis player.
That's actually super interesting to hear about. That like your forehand it felt like the rest of your game developed because of your forehand was bad.
I mean, there's a reason why my best shot was my backhand live, because that was the only weapon in the game for me. Everything else was liability behind my feet.
Oh man.
Now let me go ahead and argue the other side.
Yes,
because I definitely think what you said is totally fair. I wanted to make sure that when I asked the question, we were keeping all else equal.
Yes.
Right. So not thinking about Nick Kyrgios as a player, but just isolating his lack of passion for the game.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is fair, because part of his passion is that even though he's up and down, he does step up for big matches. So he is passionate about competition.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to argue the flip side, because I think in order to be at Nick Kyrgios' level with his lack of passion, or actually be a pro with his type of passion, you literally have to be him. It's a 1 in 10 million probability of like having that level of talent to make up for that lack of passion. And so it kind of goes into one of our next questions about kind of high variance versus low variance outcomes.
Yeah.
But I would pick the low variance outcome here and go with Michael Mmoh's forehand, and just, at least have some passion for the game.
Yeah.
And like at least be able to be a top 300 player with it.
I guess was the question of your spirit, was the spirit of your question specifically on Michael Mmoh, like, or just any player with his caliber forehand versus any player? Okay, so basically, like, don't associate a name with just someone with the dookie forehand
versus someone with no passion
for the game. Yeah, when you put it like that, yeah, I actually am more inclined to say that I would want Mmoh's forehand, because if that's literally the only shot that's hurting your game, you can work on that.
Right.
You can work on that. And again, passion is harder to fix.
It's harder to fix, and it's just, you just see Kyrgios kind of like, he's not having as much fun.
For sure.
A lot of times, and especially on the smaller courts. So he's only having fun in the big matches. And
for sure.
That's few and far between. And again, to get to those big matches, you have to have the remainder of his game.
Yeah, and it's not just that, right? It's like one of the things we talked about the season is a slog. You're going to lose passion throughout, you're going to lose passion throughout the season.
I mean, look at Kyrgios now, right?
Yeah.
He's played maybe 7 complete seasons, and now he's already starting. You can see the decline happening, right? He might not ever play a full season again.
Yeah, I don't think he will, given how little he wants to travel, which is completely understandable. I mean, who wants to play in, like, I don't know, Eastbourne is the only tournament that keeps popping into my head because I just don't understand why it's literally the week before Wimbledon.
Or just like grinding in South America for the clay courts. I mean, it takes a special breed of 2 named Spaniards and South Americans to just suffer day in and day out.
Yeah. All right, that's it. That's a good topic. I think that leads in quite nicely to our final segment, which is a little more of a hypothetical. This is what one of the things we saw over the past couple weeks is that Richard Gasquet won his 600th match on the ATP Tour, which is something I actually wouldn't have expected. I would not have expected him to have 600 match results. I mean, that's like
a phenomenal milestone.
Yeah, that's a ridiculously high milestone. I mean, Fed himself has
I think Fed crossed 1,000.
1,000, that's quite a big difference. But he's achieved so much more than what Gasquet has, right? And so the question we wanted to pose is, would you, if before the ATP Tour, let's say you're just about to turn pro, right?
Could I just say one quick thing about that 600
of course,
milestone?
Yeah,
I just looked up. For comparison, Andy Roddick only had 612 total match wins.
Wow.
Which tells you what kind of elite company Richard Gasquet is.
Yeah.
For just having that longevity.
Yeah.
Despite being a coke snorting veteran, as we've said before. This dude, just one of the sexiest one-handers in the game. No wonder he was railing lion drop some woman's expletive.
Yeah. He's a guy who knows how to have a good time, and we can't fault him for that, especially given the fact that he's producing wins and has 600 match wins. That's not. I mean, Roddick puts it into perspective, because Roddick also quit.
He retired early.
Retired early.
Brooklyn Decker.
Yes, but at the end of the day, there were a lot more miles on his body than the traditional guys who, like, I mean, he turned pro, what, 17, 18?
Right. So he still played a 14 or 15-year career.
Exactly. But yeah, back to the original question. Basically, if you were prior to your joining, like the ATP tour, for example, if you had two contracts in front of you and you had one contract that said you were guaranteed going to have 600 match wins, nothing else is said about the titles you win, slams you win. But with 600, you can anticipate you probably won a few titles. You're
probably a top 10 player.
Yeah, you're living on the pro tour was never like a doubt. Money was never a concern. Or you have door number 2, contract number 2. Unknown, blank piece of paper. It could be anything. You could be top 3. Your peak could be top 300 in the world. You could win a Grand Slam. It's unknown what your future is. Which do you take?
This is a brutal philosophical question.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on how much you believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
That's where my head was going with this, because if you really believe you have the potential and your game style is you have the 1-2, you have the complete game, you have the athleticism.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would settle for 600. I know that's a massive statement to make, but if you think you're the next Djokovic, then you take door number 2.
Yeah.
But if you're anyone else,
yeah,
I mean, come on, guys, sign up for the contract.
I'm gonna be this might be a hot take. I actually don't know. I actually think that Novak and Federer, they would take contract number 1. I actually think they would take contract number 1, because no matter how good you are, you haven't achieved enough success. Like, literally, unless you're winning a Grand Slam at 16 or 15 years old, you don't know what your future is going to look like on the pro tour. I refuse to believe that Federer was like, oh yes, I am going to win 18, 19, 20 Grand Slams, right? And this is something we were talking about off air, was that when Federer retired, he himself said that I'm not selfish about, potentially winning, a couple more Grand Slams. So I've achieved more than I ever thought was possible. And so I actually think 100% of players, like, okay, fine, not 100%, 99% of players will take contract number 1.
It's a great take, because we've said this too, where you're an injury away from basically having no career and having to be a coach for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that's a totally fair take. I think you convinced me contract.
This actually feeds in really well to a question I was going to ask you specifically. I haven't shared this question with you, which is a good live take here. You probably won what, 300, 400 matches on your junior tour?
I would say probably a little less than that. I think my best year, I'd probably won a little over 50 matches in a year.
Okay.
So I don't think I ever repeated that.
So maybe let's say 250, 200. Sure. Yeah. So you won 250 matches over your junior career. Before, in 12s when you started out, would you have, if you had known, signed contract 50 matches versus contract number 2, same situation, right? You don't know how much you're gonna win. Which one would you have taken?
Oh man, that's so tough, because here's the thing: when I was 12, I really thought I was gonna play a pro tennis. So honestly, until I was probably 18, right? Maybe a little later than most people realized, I thought I was going to be playing pro tennis. Yeah. So I would want to walk through and take the risk of option B. I think the thing with option A too, without knowing the types of matches you're winning, is if I'm just winning calendar matches or level 5 matches, it's not as big a deal as, maybe potentially being a top 25 blue chip senior getting recruited, right? So it's tough to think. The other thing too is the juniors, now looking back, I would say they don't even matter. At the end of the day, it's about how much you improve
for sure
from your sophomore year of college.
Yeah.
Through college and beyond, especially if you want to play pro tennis.
No, for sure. I agree with that. I think the thing was purely analogous, because on the flip side, I didn't play 200. It took me a long time to become better, right? And I had the exact opposite career you did.
Right.
And so if you had told me then, based on the career I had, I would take contract number 1, because I didn't have a career. Now looking back with the game I have, yes, I would take contract number 2, because I know what it takes to become good. But if you'd posed that question to me as a 10-year-old, I definitely would have taken contract number 1.
I do think this feeds into a potential next podcast topic of what we would have done differently in general as juniors.
Oh, yeah.
With the knowledge we have now, which I need like a therapy session for every other day because there's so much knowledge that I would love to impart to like my kids about what to do differently. I mean, granted, you know, our parents did the best they could with what they knew.
For sure.
But now that we have kind of experienced the game, I think it's just a massive leg up on.
Oh, absolutely. It 100% is. And I'll join you guys on that because recently my dad asked me after winning a couple matches, he was like, hey, I think this level might be too easy for you. Why don't you go play an open tournament? And I was like, Dad, you clearly are not getting what I'm putting down because I don't have it in me right now to play 8 a.m. matches and then play 11 a.m. match again in Sacramento.
And then play doubles.
Yeah, and play doubles. So I don't think that's the type of feedback I was getting as a kid. And so, I can 100% relate on this one. Awesome. Well, tune in for another episode of Real Take Tennis next week when we cover the Wimbledon draw. But until then, take care and
Peace.
Peace.